I'm very interested in talk about your relationship, especially because I haven't found a lot of information about how you work together. I've seen the documentary, I have your books, so I read a lot and I found a lot of information, but not as much information about the relationship between a photographer and a director of photography, which to me is something very peculiar. Can you explain a little bit how you work together?
Well, I guess I'll begin. And Rick and I have been working for a very long time now, like
18 years,
yeah,
maybe.
I would say close to 20 years probably. And through various bodies of work, and we've, I think, developed a great working relationship through all that time. And now I feel like we have a kind of shorthand where we're able to sort of almost like through osmosis create a kind of way of making the pictures in terms of light and color and mood and atmosphere. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely a shorthand for sure, especially the last project. We're both very busy in our own respect on the shoot, so the shorthand works out very well. And usually it's pointed in this, I follow the lead, and it's usually hopefully pointed in the right direction. A lot of the pictures speak for themselves, well, through location.
Seeing your relationship from the distance, it looks a lot like the relationship between a film director and a cinematographer. It's something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, from early on, the way we work always has been, um, we locations. Once I have like a idea about a series of pictures, we go on a location scout. It's either Rick and I, or sometimes we're accompanied by others, and then in very general terms, we map out each picture in terms of like, we'll be looking down the street, there's a car, someone getting out of a car. It's usually a variation on that. And essentially that's the motivation, that's the discussion. And then through that, Rick comes up with a lighting plan in terms of, I always say that Rick sees the light. He sees the light, and I feel like we, in a certain way, we both work that way. I see the picture, he sees the light, and then it's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. And I think when it's all going well, the conversation begins and ends there. And then it's just a matter of, putting everything together and putting the team together and shooting. And then I think when we're on location, when we're shooting, and when like the lights and are working with the ambient light, we could both see when it just like comes in. Like we could see, the picture that we both had been imagining, I think.
The sweet spot.
Yeah, the sweet spot.
And natural ambient light fitting with the artificial light. But as far as director of photography, yeah, the director writer and director of photography, that's the relationship. The only thing different is there's no sound on the set. Otherwise, yeah, the director writer for sure. It's a vision.
Looking to the make of pictures of your work, looks a lot like a movie set all the time. For especially the work with the crew, with the gaffers, with the lighting crew and the rigs and everything, it looks a lot like a medium movie set.
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing should be made absolutely clear. Rick comes from a movie background, And I think that's what gives the pictures its particular cinematic quality. I mean, I've always loved from early on the relationship between movies and the still image, and then when we started working together, I started to see how we could use cinematic lighting in a photographic way, you know. But his entire team all come out of movies, and we use entirely cinematic production, and I think that gives the pictures its particular kind of look, its particular sensibility.
Rick, you're coming from movies. Can you explain a little bit which is your background and how you get to be a DOP?
Background, yeah. I first discovered lighting when I was in business administration at University of Maine. And I was failing in that because I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
I was good at math, but I just not that person. So I went to an intro to theater class and saw a main stage play. And this is in Maine, the Northeast. And so I immediately moved to Los Angeles to learn lighting. Epiphany, you know. Went from there. So I started theater and worked to film just to pay the rent. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Maybe tell them how you got back to this area, because that's an interesting story.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to get back to New England because I was in Los Angeles for 20 years, which is it's pretty intense there. That's fine, but I was starting to get jaded, and then there was a visual effects shoot here in New England, so I heard about it, so I came here to visit. I want to get back to New England, so I moved back.
How do you meet?
We met through, I think, originally through Dan Karp, right?
Yeah.
Who is the camera man, a camera operator. We met at a bar of all places, the Union bar,
Yeah, right.
And Dan introduced us, and I was just beginning the Twilight pictures, or just starting to think about the Twilight pictures, and Rick talked. I think I asked him about like how he would light like a picture, and he talked for about 10 or 15 minutes. I did not understand a single word he said, literally. It's all like text speak, you know. It's also like Rick speaks very abstractly sometimes about light because, as I said, he sees it in ways others don't. But I came away from that just knowing that it would be amazing to try to work with Rick on one single picture we started with, and it was a light coming out of an outhouse. It was the first picture, you know.
One light.
One light. And that sort of started the relationship, and he sort of worked. You know, he was very busy. You know, he was doing a lot of commercial work, and he would sort of fit us in. You know, and was just really amazingly helpful, and I think we're all very excited about the possibilities. And you know, in that first summer, we, you know, did like a series of pictures, which are like, some of those are now classic pictures, I think. So, but we did it all like very economically. Like we did it like in just, what's the word? Just like the most
Guerrilla.
Yeah,
Guerrilla
guerrilla style, like tying it to people's houses.
We were tying electricity in the garage.
And sometimes without telling them, you know, like no insurance. We had like, I mean, Rick was like, at that time, like the only like professional on set. Like we had a hodgepodge of like locals,
Yeah.
just like
tree workers
putting lights in, and it was really like just an amazingly like sort of, I don't know, just like weirdly put together group. But we were doing something that really felt exciting.
It was very nice to keep track of your project through Instagram and the new social networks, because the fans, we had the chance to follow the process. And it's very interesting because at this time, I think that your work is not only very close to filmmaking on the aesthetic part, on the lighting or the setup, but also how do you prepare the work. I mean, Cathedral of the Pines or Twilight, it looks like a movie, the whole project, and like the sequences of a movie. And do you feel the same, that you're like preparing a small movie and then you do the scenes of that?
Yeah, I feel like we approach almost every part of it like a movie. Like, you know, now, particularly, you know, over the years, we've, you know, the entire process has become much more streamlined, and we work with a line producer, and we have like a budget, and we have like, we work in productions, and we bring a whole team up and house them, and we map out every day in terms of what's going to be shot, and we have pre-light days, and so it's all, and we have location managers and all that stuff, and it's all like organized like a movie, you know, excepting for the fact that we always shoot single images.
Also, there's a question that to me it's important now that you shoot Cathedral of the Pines, because when I was doing the research of your work, I was amazed because both of you constructed most of the pictures on the studio, and it was everything built from zero. So it was really like a movie, and now you've changed it again to the local, to the real location. So do you prefer to work in real locations, or building from zero on a studio?
Well, in Beneath the Roses, the all the exteriors are obviously on location, and the interiors are all like built on sound stages, and Cathedral of the Pines is all on location, and so it's two, you know, very different ways of working. I mean, I in the end prefer shooting on location. I love the excitement of it. I love like how things change and how there's surprises. However, those great advantages working on the soundstage, particularly like being able to put lights where you want.
Control,
right?
basically. Yeah. Control. But there is a much more organic sense of, you know, practical locations.
Mhm.
Yes.
There's something interesting on your pictures, and to me, it's the time of the day that you're shooting exteriors, especially in twilight, because it's amazing that the color of the sky and the mixture with the artificial light, it's simply amazing. I think that most of your pictures are shown in most of film studios right now, uh, because the mixture of that, it's simply amazing. Uh, talking about Keep talking about the relationship on set. When you work together, uh, you're working with references, you're talking about movies, about pictures, about concrete stuff.
Yeah, well, early on, when we're like in the early stages of production, like we'll have references, and for each picture we have a written description, and and I think particularly in Cathedral of the Pines, there was a lot of early discussion about the palette of those pictures, because I wanted them to feel different from Beneath the Roses.
Mhm.
I said to Rick early on, it's like we've sort of proven that we could like close down full city streets and light, you know, these kind of epic pictures. What I wanted to do in Cathedral of the Pines is something much quieter, much more painterly. And we had to, I think, work to find that particular aesthetic of like light coming from, if you notice in the Cathedral of the Pines, in the interiors, most of the central light comes from outdoors in, And I think that was like, it took us some time to get to that, you know.
That's the first time we blended the color temperatures a lot more evenly.
And it was a much quieter tone, but like that does not mean it was less complicated. Believe me, I mean like the rigs and bounces and and just the lighting plots that Rick created were just amazing on that. Like to me, more impressive.
Yeah, well, having a good crew, as you know, right?
Yeah, it's easier when you have an S crew and the tools, because you're using for a film, for a movie, it could be like a small movie, but for photography, your setups looks huge. I mean, have you ever worked, Rick, with strobe light, with flashlights?
So no, well, getting back to when we first met,
Hmm.
Dan, our mutual friend who introduced us, kept saying, Rico's been in here. I've got a friend who's a still photographer who needs help lighting. I'm going, and I just moved from Los Angeles to. I'm going. That's okay. I'll pass on that one. I don't really want to help with still. I figure it's wedding photos or something.
Yeah.
And he kept on asking us, "Come on, no, I don't want to do that." And then finally we met at the bar, the restaurant bar, and then I heard Gregory's stories. I'm going, whoa, yeah, let's do it, let's do. And as far as strobes, no, one thing that no strobes, but one thing that did impress me a lot, that I was a little confused at first, was motion picture. You select your focus a lot more, and these stills, everything was detailed and wanted to be in focus. So you could look around and tell your own story by watching everything in the set. Just art director, but strobes, no.
Yeah, no, like for me is a vulgarity. You know, like to me, like it's like hot light is like
It's harder to control.
It's also like you see it.
Yeah.
Like the strobe, you know, like the moment you're taking a picture, you change the picture, and for what we're doing is like camera's basically documenting this beautiful scene, and you can choreograph. Like one of the great things about how we light things is like you tell a story through light, basically. I mean, I always say that it's like in the end, every one of my pictures is a story about light. It's like, and then how do you sort of shape that light and create like different moments of light through a frame, you know? And so that was so I you know, I think that's the way we've always thought about it, and I think that's what's particularly unique about the pictures.
That's something that you both mentioned, which is the composition of the image. To me, one of the things that it's important, it's the the final size of the picture. I mean, your pictures are are not done to be shown in small screens or small paper, but in huge prints. And this is one thing that I really miss of seeing your work being away from the States and away from most of your exhibits, because I think that the pictures need to be in a huge size. This is important when you frame the picture. Are you really thinking in the big, a really big print? Mm,
Well, I mean, this is something we talk about a lot. Is like most people now experience pictures through screens, whether they're on their phones or computers or various devices. And for me, you know, it's important that the final picture is a physical object that's hanging in a space and has a certain kind of authority and lasting quality. Like most pictures we see on screens are meant to be disposable, you know. And I mean, we all document our lives through our cell phones, and that's all well and good. But like what we're attempting to do is like make pictures that feel like have a life as an object and as a physical thing. and it means something. You know, it's significant, and we go through an enormous amount of work to make it feel that way. I mean, in Beneath the Roses was all shot 8x10, and we did a lot of compositing of different focuses, and now we're shooting entirely digital, but we still composite the pictures and shoot every imaginable focal plane, and so that we've created a kind of system. But do you want to talk anything about that, like just the different layers of?
We use foreground pieces, just making sure they all fit and everything's in focus. Basically, the digital helps a lot because it's a smaller sensor, so there's a lot more depth of field. That's helped a bunch.
And also, I mean, to me, I think we both feel the great advantage, obviously, to digital is that you can see it on a screen, you know, and like when we used to shoot 8x10, we used to like close down entire streets and like have rain machines or snow machines and like have like big teams, you know, in lifts and we shoot at 8x10. We can't even see what we're shooting, basically. You know, it's like
it's upside down and hard to see because we are still twilight shooting, and so it's dark out. So
and then we were always just like send an intern down to New York to develop the film. We were all terrified.
Right. The good old days.
You know, but
yeah,
like
you had to have a lot of faith on your project. But also talking about film versus digital, which I shoot both all the time. Right now, I'm getting back to film after years shooting digital. Have you changed your way? It has a lot of benefits shooting on digital, but one of those is the sensitivity of the camera becomes easier to do things with less light. Have you changed your way to light the scenes, changing to digital, or you keep lighting the same?
it's definitely different.
It's different, but still, we rely on the ambient light that we rely on. That would be the minimal amount of light. Is still a constant at the magic hour. The sweet spot is still going to be constant. So we rely on that to happen. The planet to keep rotating. So we rely on that. but yeah. Otherwise, you know,
Yeah. No, I mean
more range for sure.
I mean, we would never shoot, you know, except on a soundstage, but we'd never shoot like without the ambient sun. That's like key to the pictures, you know. It's absolutely.
There's been in the last few years a change on the filmmaking community about how people like the movies, because it was an interesting address from Vittorio Storaro 2 weeks ago talking about Revenant and that kind of movies, which they tend to use natural light, and also in interiors. It's not the case of Revenant, but other DOPs that they tend to use less and less and less lighting. And Storaro said that this is against the work of a creator. I mean, you have to light for what you want, not for getting a result which is different than the thing that you want to do, something like that. I don't know if you agree on that, or you prefer to work with less light and see what happens.
Yeah. I think it's all about, in the end, it's all about light. So like
telling the story. Yeah, I mean, the Revenant, nothing. I saw one scene that was shot when the sun was up. Everything else, the sun wasn't up, or maybe it's on the horizon only. So they're controlling their light by doing that. They're not just relying on not using lights. They're using the natural light properly. So
yeah, no matter how you get around, no matter how you do it, in the end, it's about light and like trying to find the right situation for the right mood, the right atmosphere. To me, it's always in the end about creating a world, you know, and like a world that feels real and recognizable and mysterious and beautiful and particular, you know. And I feel like that's something that we've been able to achieve. I want to mention, because we're talking about like working on location and stuff, it's like one beautiful thing absolutely is watching Rick work with his crew, and they're all completely sort of love Rick, but also like slightly intimidated by him, and but they're much more intimidated by him than by me. I'll say that much. But it's great to watch that operation happen, where like he works with a group and like leading them through this process, and it's also beautiful to watch like when we're shooting, he's always making adjustments on his walkie-talkie, because as the sun's going down, we're making adjustments with lights and turning things, closing them down now. You don't want to do something wrong, and be on Rick's team, because you'll hear about it.
It's all about the image.
Yeah.
And the crew's seen the images, so that's why the trust is there. So
yeah.
Sure. There's a question for Rick. Doing a picture, still picture, you don't have to do the coverage and do different setups or angles. That influences a lot the light that you do all the time, because if you plan a sequence for a movie, of course you have to have the wide shot, then the close-up, then the reverse shot, or whatever. And doing the still picture, it's just that picture. So do you feel free? Do you feel more free doing that kind of pictures than doing a movie?
well, no, so still you're looking at a still photograph, so you're scrutinizing it. So there are a lot of specials set, or a movie wouldn't have to set as many specials. It's not the story that's being told. It's a more of a coverage is continuing the scene. So that's the biggest difference there.
I think it's like my impression is, because like many of Rick's team and a lot of the others work with movies, and I do feel like everyone feels like it's a privilege to work towards making a single image, as opposed to like having to cover or having to like get this many shots in a single day. We are focused exclusively on making a single picture, and I think that it's just a different way of working.
Sure.
Very different.
Sure.
I have a question for you, Gregory, and everything tends to ask the same question. It's, are you going to shoot a movie anytime?
There is like always discussion about it, and we're actually have been working on a script, so there is the possibility of making a movie, but I would only do it if it feels like an absolute natural extension to the pictures. Like if it felt like there's a way of making a movie that felt like in the realm of my photographs as opposed to the opposite, so it would have to work on that level.
That would be nice. And also commercials or music videos, things like that. Are you interested on that?
We've done a couple of like commercial things and still images, and like I tend not to want to do that, because like I try to just keep my sort of particular aesthetic, connected to my own story. I mean, there's been some exceptions to the rule on that, but like generally that's the way to go.
I think that most of your work is considered art, besides of being photography. And I have also the big question: what is art? What defines a picture as a piece of art? Do you have an answer for that? Because it's one of the most popular questions when we talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, I think less in terms of that and more about trying to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I do feel like, in a way, art has something to do with expressing an internal story in visual form that feels real and at the same time truthful and mysterious and beautiful, and in the end remains a question.
I know that you're a teacher in university. You've been teaching for years. I'm not sure if you're aware of the impact of your work in students worldwide. I mean, I've been teaching filmmaking, cinematography in different universities in Spain and across Europe. And most of cinematography students that I've met, most of them reference both of your work. I mean, uh, you're like the reference right now, and it's curious because at the end, I feel that most of your work is influenced by movies, and it's
Yes.
easy to see the influence of many movies. But at this time, you're influencing movies at the same time. So,
Right.
do you feel?
Well, to me, that's the way things go. Like you are influenced by certain things, and then you change it very slightly to make it your own, and then in return, you are become the source of other inspirations, and they change it and make it their own, and that's sort of how things go, you know.
Can you tell
But
me?
and I can't really like that's all. It feels like gratifying, and sometimes, and but in the end, it never really changes the basic problem, which is like to make the next picture. You know? But it is like interesting, like when you see work that's inspired by yourself, and that's gratifying. But it's also like you try to figure out a way to like make that continue to make that story your own and in your own pictures.
Nice. Can you tell me a little bit movies that you like, both of you?
Uh, well, I just was watching just the other Night of the Hunter. You know,
Oh, nice.
the Norton film. That's one of the most beautiful black and white films I've ever seen, and of course, I'm a very big Hitchcock fan, um, and you know, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I like film noir, French film noir, Alain Dion, The Last Samurai, Wages of Fear. I also like Zootopia.
Yeah.
Oh, a one title. That's nice to have a broad
Yeah.
thing.
But also, like Road to Perdition, which Conrad Hall shot, is like one of the most beautiful movies.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree. I totally agree. And the thing is, the movies that you mentioned, Gregory, are all in your pictures as well. You can
Yes.
notice that influence on the picture all the time. So that's nice. And we're finishing now, and I want to ask you if you can tell to the people who is starting some kind of advice to shoot and find, especially to find the inspiration, which is the most difficult thing to find probably.
Want to go first?
Not for lighting, I mean, just immersion. You know, if you're going to do it, focus on it.
Yes,
Break down, recreate stuff, recreate images.
Mhm.
I like immersion. I like that word. I think just be truthful to your own particular way of viewing the world,
Mhm.
and that's understand that's really the only thing you have in the end, and you have to nourish it and and allow it to grow and be protective of your particular story.
That's nice. I've heard that you're coming to Europe to show in Cathedral of the Pines on
Yes.
the fall. I think in September you're going to be in Paris and Belgium, something like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will meet there because I really want to go there and see the exhibition. So it will be nice to meet. And talking a little bit about Cathedral of the Pines, which is your last job. Can you explain a little bit of the project?
Well, in many ways, I think it's like the most personal pictures I've ever made. It came out of like moving back up to Massachusetts and made all the pictures in Beckett and on location, and they're very much about a kind of renewal and reconnection with nature.
Hmm. Nice. I haven't seen it all the pictures, but to me it looks more like a painting, like than a picture than a photograph right now. It's, are you going to explore that area as well?
Yeah, I'm really love that sort of look of the pictures, and we'll definitely continue that exploration for sure.
That would be nice to see. Well, to me, it's everything set up. So thank you very much for your times. Huge apologize for my bad English because I'm not
Oh, no. We apologize for our bad English too.
Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Yes, thank you.